All coming in, they were more of a wild card team. Of course, they had the Nats winning the division. But I thought the Braves were more of a wild card team. But right now, I think it's the Braves division to take. I think they've kind of, once they moved into first place, the moment wasn't too big for them. And then the Phillies started to take a dive. So I think it's kind of settled in. It's the Braves division to win. And when you look at it with the all-star voting, I mean, you got guys all over the place, and Freeman and Acuna, and you have all-star caliber talent in almost every position. And then you add Keuchel to the mix, who hasn't been crazy good, but he has been efficient.
You can see getting his feet wet, basically, trying to get back into it.
And in the game against the Cubs, he had 4 innings and took an hour and a half off with the lightning delay, and came back in. But he's getting ground ball outs and against the Cubs, who are good hitters. So I like that sign from Keuchel. I like what I've seen from Teheran. So I think the Braves are the team that's really got control in this division. They got a stranglehold. Then the Nats are making a move. They're a game over 500 now. Yeah, they started out slow, but I tend to think that the Braves will, as the season's setting up right now, if they could, I don't necessarily think they need to add a starting pitcher, but they could add to the bullpen, because their bullpen is not that bad. I think they have the best ERA of all the bullpens in the NL. I think I heard that stat last week. I think Yates gave us that. But it's the timing of the runs that they give up. They always give up these runs.
The back end of the bullpen.
Yeah, in these close games. So I think they need somebody, to shore up that back end. But really, regardless of whether they add somebody, as it stands right now, to me, the Braves are clearly the best team, the most consistent team, and the most dangerous team. I mean, you saw it on Clary's account last week on his Twitter account. The Braves, they may not win a game, but they are one of the most fun teams to watch, because there are no holes in this lineup. Yeah. I mean, you got Acuna leading off. You got Freeman, a couple of guys after that, Albies, Culberson, Swanson. I mean, all these guys have some pop. And Donaldson, he's having a resurgent year. And so it's really a fun, exciting team to watch. But it's all about pitching in October. But as of right now, to get to October, I like the Braves' chances, man.
Yeah. And when I look at the Braves, when I watch them, it's the same thing. And I've said this before. It doesn't matter really what the score is. Their offense is capable of filling a gap or putting up a head. They just have an offense that just comes at you. They constantly put pressure on you. And as you said it, they space out their lineup pretty good too, where they have threats all throughout. It's very balanced, and hitting is never really the issue. Pitching, it's if this team could add, and I know they don't necessarily need to add another starter more than they need bullpen help. And you need those guys that are proven to do it in those clutch moments, those tight situations when it's a one-run game. That it's a different breed.
Right, absolutely.
Those guys are just cold-blooded, man. They come in and they don't care. It's very difficult to pitch in those situations late in the ball game if you're up a run or so, or when you come in and you're trying to clean up a pitcher's mess or something like that. Those are very hard to find. There are some out there.
Right.
And I think those are the kind of arms that the Braves need to add. If they do that, they are setting themselves up to be right there in the mix of things. Now, do I think they need starting pitching? I do think that they need a little bit more. I don't know if they get all that now. I don't know, if there's a moves at the deadline that can get them bullpen help and starting pitching help, and how important is starting pitching? Well, you definitely need at least 2 or 3 really good starters if you're going to win it all. And it's if you can build a bullpen, though, it does help. It does hide your pitching a little bit. The Red Sox won the World Series last year. They had one stud in their starting rotation. The rest, David Price is pitching good this year, but he was not that great last year.
Yeah, he wasn't. Okay.
And other guys, Eduardo Rodriguez, Rick Porcello always is an up and down type pitcher. 1 year's good, 1 year's bad. Last year was solid for him. This year it's been pretty bad. They didn't have the deepest rotation. They didn't really have the deepest bullpen, but they had a Kimbrel. They had an eighth inning guy. They had, you know what I mean? You could shorten a game like that, and it makes a world of a difference. Now, I think of a team like what Buck Showalter and the Orioles before, they're been as bad as they have been the last 2 years. But when Showalter turned things around there, they had a very good bullpen. A lot of good arms in their bullpen. The reason why they just never could win is because they never found an ace. I think the Braves have an ace. I think Soroka is showing that he is that guy. And there should be a lot of excitement around this team. I just know right now, if you can't fill in and give yourself 3 really good starters, and Toronto's been pretty solid this year. So they're not awful starting pitchers. That's not what I'm saying. But if you can't get like some of the big arms, to be in your rotation, then the best thing to do is to build your bullpen, to shorten the length of the game. And that's what we've seen now with baseball, and that's what teams are going to, is to build a bullpen where you just need 5, maybe 6 innings from your starters and let your bullpen ride it out the rest of the way. I think that's all this team is missing, is just adding those guys, not necessarily because, yes, they do have some good arms in their bullpen and guys that do come in and shut the door a little bit, but I think they're missing that somebody like Kimbrel, a guy that now Kimbrel can make things interesting.
It almost seems like these guys are in the wrong roles. Like Jackson's a good. I think he'd be a good setup man. Right. I don't know he'd be a good closer because he's got a 3 ERA. Yeah, that's not bad.
And a lot of that ERA comes from blowing saves.
Yeah, it's the timing of it. I don't know. Maybe they try.
You know what I mean? Like
do more of Webb at the closer position. I don't know.
Like a tie ball game, or even they're up 1 or something like that. Do you trust in a pressure situation, a playoff atmosphere, to throw Jackson in there and close the door?
Absolutely not.
You don't. And
he should be a setup guy.
Yeah, and maybe 7th, 8th inning is a better fit for him. It takes somebody of a different breed to be a closer. I don't think he has that in his DNA.
Right. You take the Cubs as an example. They have Pedro Strop closing out. He's always been a good 7th, 8th inning guy. Never been a great closer.
Right.
Now he's in the 8th inning. He's the setup guy. They could push Luke Jackson to a closer role and bring in a John Smoltz or somebody like that.
Somebody that is proven to do
close it out.
It takes a different animal to be a closer. It really does. And these players are also used to certain roles. And when they change those roles a little bit, it does sometimes make a difference. It does, take them a little bit out of their comfort zone, out of their element. I think it's a real possibility that this Phillies team is going to be like the Nationals last year, where they just never come together.
Right.
It's just they're not as good as I thought they would be. I know David Robertson in their bullpen has had some injuries, and it's just has never really come together. And sometimes that happens with new teams when you put so many new guys on one team. It might take a season or so to kind of get going. It could be next year the Phillies are going to be that team that people expected this year. It might never work out. It's just one of those things. But I think the Braves have that advantage where they're together. You know what I mean? They're clicked, and they've done that since last year. And yeah, they have some holes, but they're able to cover it up. And,
absolutely.
And I think what you said when you talked about, what Clary says about them all the time as well. They're not the best team right now, but they're certainly a lot of fun to watch. They got a lot of young, talented players with Albies and Acuna, and now with Austin Riley coming up. And Austin Riley, his impact, just to be that spark. Because before he got called up, they weren't playing terrible, but they weren't at a high level. You bring up an Austin Riley, and he kind of springs some life to the team. And that's sometimes what these young prospects can do when you bring them up and they have some success right now. It just builds a team's confidence, even more. And I think Austin Riley kind of had that impact, came up and he was tearing it up. Yes, and like I said, he's going to hit a wall. How does it react? And then he has, gone through a little slumps. Everybody does.
Right.
But he's been able to fight through them. and continues to come up with big at-bats and big hits and big situations. Every time I'm looking, on an update, or if I miss something, I see that his name came up, involved in it. Having a player like that sparks, a team. So there are some holes. There are some weaknesses on this team, and I'm really looking forward to this next month for the Braves as bring in a few arms. Bring in a few bullpen arms to carry that load even more. You already have some arms that are nice in there, but add to it with proven guys and see what happens. I do think starting pitching could still be a little bit of a question mark when it comes to this team, to put them in the mix, maybe a title talk. But I see this team with a great chance to win this division, and they can, I think, basically wrap up this division if they add the right arms in their bullpen. I do.
Absolutely.
That's all they need. The offense is going to continue to do their thing. They got plenty. And that's a good thing about the balance of the offenses that, and I'm just using names. I don't know really who's slumping right now, but just for the sake of it, Acuna could be slumping. But somebody else is going to pick up the load. It's not everybody at once struggling. You get what I mean? They're so deep and so balanced that if this guy's struggling, well, this guy is hot. They just have that throughout. Like Josh Donaldson has gone through some stretches where he's just tearing it up, like just destroying the baseball. And then he cools off a little bit, but then somebody else picks up. That's what they're able to do offensively, which makes them a nightmare. I wouldn't want to face them if I'm a pitcher. They're a tough offense to face. Just find some bullpen arms, those back-end guys to close out the games, because they've lost several games due to just blowing one-run leads or tie ball games, those close games that they let get away. They clean that up with some of the arms. This team, I think, is going to run away with this division. I really do. I think, with the bullpen, and it's interesting to see what happens with Soroka, with young arms. They don't really like them to go over 40 innings more than they did the last year. So will they have to skip some starts or at least cut back on his innings and take him out in some games, maybe 60 pitches in, just to take the wear and tear off the arm. And if, Toronto, like we mentioned, pitched well, and maybe they are in the market for another starter or something, and I think Keuchel's going to be fine. I really do. You can see it. It's like a spring training.
He's getting a lot of ground balls. The people are not lifting the ball against him. That's a great sign.
They're certainly in a great position. Again, 4.5 game lead is not, they're not running away with it, obviously. I mean, but they're right there where they're going to have an opportunity, and I'm pretty sure they have the Phillies coming up.
Right.
You can get some big separation with a big series.
Right. But I do think, I just looked at their schedule. They play the Nats 7 times in July.
Okay.
If they could win that series, you don't even have to,
sweep them, but you want to take 2 out of 3.
If you get 4 out of the 7 games, 5 out of the 7 games that you play the Nats in July, because I think the Phillies are fading.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. I think the Nats are the team on the rise, but if they can win 4 out of those 7 games with the Nats in July, it's theirs to take. But you're right, and two, the thing about playoff pitching is you don't have to go as deep into your starting rotation. You only need 4 guys. I mean, sometimes you get by with 3, but you really are going to have 4 starters, and if you have 2 or 3 of those starters be solid, I think that the Braves are in good position, to make a run if they do add to the back of that bullpen. The question is, who's available and what you're going to give up to get it.
Right. All right, we'll wrap up this segment. We'll come back with another score desk just in case you missed it in hour number 1. If you slept in a little bit, don't worry. I'll go through what happened on Friday night once again and let you know what happened in Major League Baseball. That's coming up next here on the Saturday Sports Report.